Welcome to Bills by the Numbers, where we let the stats tell you where the Bills are at. We're presented by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Coming up, what is at the top of the to-do list for the Bills on the bye week? And can all that needs fixing be fixed in time for Week 8? Do the Bills dip into the trade market mid-season for the third year in a row? And we'll have our one burning question. Who said we had the weekend off? We're here for you during this bye week for the Bills. God, we provide such a public service here. Glad to have you with us on Bills by the Numbers. He's Wall of Famer Steve Tasker. I'm Bills play-by-play man Chris Brown. And after a set of back-to-back losses, Buffalo has now had at least one of those occurrences in every season under Coach McDermott. The Bills now set about righting some of the wrongs that have cropped up over the last few weeks to get back to winning football. Steve, what sits at the top of the priority list for you?
The first thing is obvious. It's try and get guys healthy. You spend the first month of the season trying to find out who you are, what you're good at, and all that. I don't think the Bills know that yet. They've had the roster churn on the defensive side in particular of guys in and out of the lineup. Ed Oliver's played in 2 games. Daquan Jones is now out, was out for this last game. Max Hairston, you have no idea what his status is. Dorian Strong looked like he was going to emerge as a helper. He's disappeared on the IR. This last game, at one point, you had Jordan Poyer on the field, which it was, for Jordan Poyer to be on the field, it was a break glass in case of emergency situation. For a hot minute, it looked like you were going to use Christian Benford for a minute. You had Connor McGovern go down in this game. You had Daquan was out. Josh Palmer went down.
Kincaid.
Dalton Kincaid was out. So the list goes on and on. Try and get healthy so you can find out who you are and try and stay healthy so you can get better. There have been some positive signs. Deion Walker flashed in the second half of this game. It looked like the reps are starting to show up, and he's starting to be more consistent for longer stretches. He still has some spots where you can't find him, even at 6'7", 350 pounds. But there are times when he is in the middle of it, and he's making a play. And that is happening more and more as we go on. I thought Dorian Strong and Jordan Hancock, the 2 rookie defensive backs, I think we're going to see a little bit of them in the second half of this season after this bye week as they get healthy.
Strong gets off IR, yeah. We don't really know his status.
Hoyt and Ogunjobi will be back in the building. They'll be able to contribute. That gives them some depth on that side. You got DeMar Hamlin's on IR. TJ Sanders is on IR. I mean, the list goes on and on.
You need those 2 guys.
When we started this season, we really, almost universally, this roster was like, wow, it's better than it was last year when they went to the AFC Championship. The only thing that really could derail us, if something happens to Josh or if the injury bug gets us, well, here we are. It has happened. Yeah. They're 4-2 in spite of it, so their roster was deep enough before they started getting injured. But this 2 weeks, sitting 4-2, going into this and having 2 weeks to get ready and refresh, that's the number one priority. Get the guys you've got as healthy as you can get and then evaluate where you really need to make a move. But you won't have much time after the next week.
Yeah, I will say my priority list is maybe a little more granular than yours is because I think tackling has to get addressed and repped. And look, this is a coaching staff that reps the fundamentals to high heaven. They practice tackling every single week, whether it's with those giant rolling donuts, the low bags that they tackle onto a padded mat, whatever it is, it's got to get repped and it's got to get emphasized because the missed tackle rate is just too high and the extra yards after missed tackles are killing this defense. The most recent example, the Bijan Robinson 81-yard touchdown run after 2 missed tackles, 1 at the line of scrimmage and then 1 deep in the secondary down the sideline. Tackling has got to get addressed, fixed, and be more consistent on the defensive side of the ball. The other thing is better starts to games. Like these last couple of weeks, they just cannot get on track early. And I think it's largely urgency, energy, fight. For some reason, this team does not look amped up for games at the beginning. There are times over the last several years where we have seen this team charged up at the beginning of a football game. And for some reason, it has been absent the last 3 weeks. And Steve can speak to this far better than I can. You have to bring a certain measure of emotional constitution to every game you play in the NFL if you want to give yourself a chance to win. It's not just physical, it's emotional as well. And I think the emotional element has been lacking for this team the last 3 times they've stepped on the football field at the beginning of the game. It's put them in early holes, and then they've been forced to try to climb out of them, and 2 out of 3 times they have been unsuccessful in their last 3 games. So better starts to games ties in with the lack of urgency, emotional energy. We're just not seeing it from this football team at the start of games, and I think it's made winning games that much harder each and every week. You want to stake yourself to a 10, 14-point deficit, even if you're the high-octane offense Bills, good luck coming back from that every week and winning more than you lose.
Yeah, it's a team that even in the early 4-game winning streak, at times seemed like they were playing with their food. They were disinterested. You go back and look at the second half of that Jet game, and it was a snooze fest. Now, certainly they had a big lead and all of that, and the Jets were foundering, but they were just disinterested, and I think that carries over. They feel, and maybe it might be a carryover from division title fatigue. They win it every year, and it hasn't been close. And in the first month of this season, it looked like it was going to be another laugher of a division race. Not so much anymore. Yeah. So perhaps that's enough to get them to put some emotional content into their preparation and their game time. But you're right, Brownie. In this league, I played in the NFL, then I covered it for 2 decades. And I watched a lot of games from the booth, very engaged in every game. When one team stops to take a breath because they've got a double-digit lead in the second half, when they stop to raise up and just turn it off for just a minute because of the stress, because they're injured, because they're deep into the season, because they need a rest. The moment one team does that and the other team does not, the scoreboard shows it almost immediately.
Yeah.
Almost immediately. You could have the 85 Bears or the Legion of Doom or the 2000 Ravens as a defense. The minute they let up and take a breath, the Cleveland Browns go bang, 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 touchdown, bang, 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 touchdown. It happens that fast. I have seen it literally 100 times. And if you start a game like that, it's really hard to turn it on later. Now, certainly when you got elite athletes and all that, and there's some guys on the Bills squad who can do that, but not 53 of them.
Yeah.
And that has shown over the last couple of weeks. And it showed in the games they were winning, too. Let's face it. Let's be honest. It was showing in the games they won.
Yeah.
And they got away with it.
Yep.
It showed in the Saints game. It showed in the Jet game. So, yeah, it's when you get against a team that with a pulse, like the Falcons and the Patriots, it shows.
Well, they didn't match the energy of either of those teams.
No.
At the beginning, the middle, or the end. What in your mind is fixable in a week's time, technically 2 weeks' time, but they're not playing here in the bye week. What in your mind is fixable in a couple of weeks' time that can improve as soon as they're back on the field in Week 8 at Carolina?
Well, I think the starting lineups need to be a little shaken up, either to send a message or to reward hard work or reward effort. If there's somebody out there who's not playing and not playing well enough, they need to sit down. I don't know if you can single a guy out, and I don't know what they've been at. I don't know who the coaching staff would be happy with and who they're not happy with. But certainly getting guys healthy and plugging them back in will help. But I also think there's space in the way they're working this team and fielding this team to improve it, maybe with some youth, and maybe with some energized younger guys
Yeah.
at certain spots. You can take your pick of where that might be, but I think there's plenty of room for that, and I think they should. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
You look at the way this defense played in the first half against the Atlanta Falcons, you could change out a lot of guys
335 yards.
in one half.
Yep.
That's unacceptable.
Yep. And there has to be accountability for it, and some people may have to pay the price for it in terms of playing time.
I'm not saying you look at the stat sheet and look at the first half and
No, you evaluate the film.
No, you look at the film and you say what you lay it out. That's how it's got to work,
Yep.
and I'm sure that's how it is going to work.
Oh, yeah. I don't have any doubt about that. I think the player-driven leadership on this team can rally the troops and bring more emotional energy and urgency to a game at the start. I believe that can be fixed like that, especially with the veteran leadership you have on this team to demand it of the players. That's one. I want to believe this team can improve their tackling, but to Steve's point, you may have to switch people out to get it to happen. Maybe some people have to lose their time on the field to wake them up and get them to realize my best isn't good enough right now, and that's why I'm on the sidelines watching with the coaches. And maybe that's the price some guys have to pay to get better results on the field. We've heard for a long time how that player-driven leadership has been instrumental in this team's year-over-year success. Seemed last season like the new young core of leadership had capably taken over for the old guard that had aged out. But the failure to apply the fundamentals to their play and the mental errors have been far more extensive than we're used to seeing from this club. I touched on it there, but how much do the leaders in the locker room, Steve, need to step forward so it's not the coaches all the time harping on what the standard needs to be?
Absolutely. That veteran leaders, the best, it has to come, it works best when it comes from the best players like Josh, like Ed Oliver, Greg Rousseau,
Terrell Bernard,
Terrell
as a
Bernard,
defensive captain.
Christian Benford, Tre'Davious White even. You need to get it from your best players. And you got to do it a couple of ways. You got to say how it needs to be. You got to tell them point blank what's got to change, if anything. You got to tell them. Then you got to go out and the best players have to put forth the full effort of making that happen. Practice hard, prepare hard, go the extra mile, do that. The best players have to do that so the lesser players know that's the bar they have to clear. So they up their game. Then you got to communicate. Then the best players have to communicate where they're not doing it. Hey, you're still not getting it right. Let's go. And you got to hold them accountable for that. That's what it's got to be. You got to say how it's going to be, show them how it's going to be, and tell them when they're not doing it, and hold them accountable. When you do that, that's how player-driven leadership works.
And I think it goes beyond just pushing guys during the practice week and making sure guys are up for the start of the game. I think the player-driven leadership has to be checking in on guys between series, second quarter, third quarter. I watched Puka Nacua in the third quarter on the sideline for the Rams circle up the entire offense and basically tell them, hey, we love dancing in the end zone at the end of a scoring drive, but we got to earn the right to dance. And that starts with 1st and 10 at the start of the drive and 2nd and 12 when we're behind the sticks. And we need all 11 of us pulling on the rope. Like, he was inspiring, and he talked to them for like a minute. And that was in between series in the third quarter. So I don't think the leaders on this team can just assume that the message is received. I think it has to be repeated and reiterated, beginning of the game, middle of the game, end of the game, to make sure that some of this youth understands that it's not a some of the time thing. It's an all the time thing if you want to be a 12, 13, 14 win football team. It's as simple as that. To your point earlier, you can't take your foot off the gas ever.
Right.
Not in this league.
Right.
The margins are too narrow.
You don't ever do that you can't ever do that as a player. coaching staffs do that for you. When it's time, Josh sits down in the fourth quarter against the Jets, or the third and last half of the third and the fourth quarter. Then you sit him down. You put Ray Davis in as a running back, and you go downhill, and that's what you're going to do for 3 downs while he's in the game. You got all 3 of your backup off. That's what happens. That's the only way you take the foot off the gas. You're out of the game.
Yeah.
You're out of the game. You sit down and you rest.
But then you're sitting there and you're pushing the guys that are in.
That's right, and you're cheering for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, you never disengage. So that's how it works. And I've seen a lot of good. There's been a lot of good stuff that this team has done, and with Josh, this offensive line, and James Cook getting off to the start he has gotten off to this year. There's a lot of good things going on, and it's not like they don't have it in the tank. We've seen it too often to believe that. It's not like this roster is talentless or has lost its way. But they got to do better.
Yeah. As much as the players bear the brunt of this responsibility to get things rolling again, the coaches know full well they bear some responsibility to be the facilitators. Putting their players in position to succeed is critical, especially with a roster that I think we can all agree does not have elite physical talent across the board. This team has been successful because of the sum of their parts. But how much more do the few elite players they do have need to be on the field to try to make a difference and keep games from looking like such a heavy lift?
Yeah, no question it falls on your best players, the James Cooks and the Josh Allens and the Dalton Kincaids of the world, and the offensive line. And defensively, it's on those guys up front, the guys who, cash checks, like the Rousseaus and the Ed Olivers of the world. It falls on those guys to do as much as they can do. But let's be honest, it's a team game, and you need guys out there to help the star players. And those star players, and then we've seen it. These guys, it's not like Ed Oliver and Greg Rousseau are picking up all the sacks, or Josh is doing all. These guys need some help. Mm-hmm. Everybody else on the roster has got to do more as well. You got to be there when the great players need, especially on the offensive side. When Josh needs somebody, be available. You've got to do everything you can to get on the field and stay on the field and help in any way you can. Even if you're wide out and it's a run play, you got to get on somebody. I think the real symptom that we can all agree on that lets you know that mentally they're just a little bit casual is the penalties. That is a total symptom of having it out of gear, right?
30 in the last 3 games.
You've got 10 penalties. They just take it out of gear mentally, and that's when those start to creep in. That is the biggest and most telling symptom of why you and I are having this conversation.
Well, and that's why your leadership has to police that as well. Your player-driven leadership has to police that. Like, dude, you're killing us. You are killing us right now. We can't have that. You're killing us. Like, that message has to be sent. It seems obvious, but maybe to a young player, it isn't.
I get Greg Rousseau lining up off that first play of the game. Let's go out and let's get it, and you're amped up and stuff. When he makes that mistake and gets called for an offsides and brings a fumble back, there's no way any other guy on that line should not have learned the lesson from Greg Rousseau's mistake. Ed Oliver, is he not watching Greg Rousseau lose a big play by lining up offsides, and then a quarter later he does it and causes Joey Bosa to lose a sack.
Mm-hmm. And the defense to have a 2nd and 16 situation.
That is doubling down on mistake.
Yeah.
And that's the death knell right
there. But the coaches are going to be combing through everything over the next week plus to try to find some of what has been ailing the team. And then I think secondarily, I would expect them to examine where they can enhance the talents on this roster, even beyond the elite talents, who can perform for you in just about any situation. I'm thinking of somebody like a Keon Coleman, a guy who had enormous success in the slot in college. Do you experiment there and say, hey, let's try to unlock him and put him here in the slot, and let's work him there. Like, especially if you don't have Kincaid coming out in week 8. Like, let's experiment with a big target in the slot since we don't have Kincaid. Let's use him there. See if we can unlock him. We'll put somebody else outside. Maybe it's Shavers that lines up outside instead, the bigger receiver. So I think there's going to be some time spent in the lab to see, with the talent that we have, and maybe not the highest end talent because we know what they can do, but let's find some of those role players at the second and third levels and put them in a position to maximize their strengths and even enhance some of their weaknesses that maybe they can't do well because it's not part of the strength category for them. I really expect the coaches to drill down on a lot of those things and find some answers, because that will level up the offense or level up the defense or level up special teams across the board. Because when you can get your second and third tier performers to level up their game because you're putting them in a better position to help you, it raises all boats. Like, high tide raises all boats. I think the coaching staff, just knowing how they operate in the bye week, they're going to find some things to utilize some of that second and third tier talent on the roster to make the whole product better going forward. It's a big reason why Sean McDermott is 8-0 after the bye as Bills head coach. Each of the last 2 seasons, GM Brandon Beane has made a veteran player addition before the trade deadline. 2 years ago, it was cornerback Rasul Douglas. Last year, it was wide receiver Amari Cooper. First part of the question, Steve, do you think Brandon Beane pulls the trigger? Second part of the question, do you think he has to pull the trigger?
First part's the real question.
Yep.
I don't think he'll hesitate. I think it comes down to this, and we've been talking about it. How healthy are they going to be coming out of this bye and before the deadline? And are they going to be able to find out how good they can be? Now, certainly going 4-0 and never playing your best football says something about where they are. They feel like they probably have to feel like they've got the juice to do it if they can stay healthy. Secondly, if some of these guys coming back aren't going to get there in time, like Max Harrison, TJ Sanders, Dorian Strong, name the one you want, Milano. If those guys aren't going to be able to get back and help you, do you have enough juice to get there? That's the question. And then again, you got to fit it under the cap, and it can be 1-for-1. And do you want to part with the assets for what is a maybe help? If you get a guy that you think, wow, I can't believe we got the guy. If it's that kind of trade, yeah, give him a whatever draft pick, right? If it's a guy that's like, well, I don't know, he might help us, and it's got to be an absolute slam dunk, I think, to make the move, because they've shown early in this season that when they're healthy and when they're clicking, when they got things going on, they've got the juice to beat about anybody.
Yeah, I think a shakeup on the roster needs to be made. To your point earlier, it doesn't necessarily have to be a trade. It could be somebody losing their starting job to somebody on the bench.
Right.
Sometimes that can be enough to spark a wake-up call, because Steve's right. This team needs a shake-up. Sometimes when you've been as successful as the Bills have been over the last 6 seasons, players can get complacent. Let's just be honest. It can happen. They don't sweat the details. They lack the urgency. They lack the hunger, and it shows up on the field. You could see how much hungrier the Atlanta Falcons were in that game than the Buffalo Bills on Monday night in Week 6. Some personnel changes could be made to wake the team up, get them squarely focused on the details, or it could be your job. You could be next. That can wake a team up out of a complacent slumber, if you will. I think for Beane, though, there are 2 things at play here. His ability to add to the roster is limited by cap space. In all likelihood, if he's going to make a trade of any significance, it's probably going to have to be a player with dollars going out to get another player with dollars coming in. And that could complicate things, because a lot of teams willing to trade at this time of the year are teams that are either at the bottom of their division, they're going nowhere, and what do they want? They want draft capital. They don't want your veteran player with a high price tag, because you got to push dollars out to fit the guy you're bringing in under the cap. So that might complicate things in order for Beane to get a deal done. I suppose you could always send draft capital out, bring that player in, and then cut somebody to save money. That's another option. So it's not like he's not without options to make something happen. But you could quickly come up with positions where they need help. It was nice to hear this week from Coach McDermott that Max Hairston, his practice window could be open next week. That at least leaves you hope that the corner position is getting some help there, because they're thin right now with Dorian Strong and Hairston on IR.
Right.
You know, and Benford a little hobbled coming out of the Atlanta game with an Achilles injury. So we'll have to see where all of that goes. But I think, to your point, player health right now on the roster is going to predicate whether or not Brandon Beane feels he needs to pull the trigger somewhere, whether it's corner, linebacker where they have injuries, you know, or somewhere else.
Right. And that's a hard trade to swing, and it's sometimes there's just never a team, or not a team, that fits. They need a player where they've got a weakness, where you've got a player where you've got a strength, and you can trade both sides, right? You can get a player from them and their strength, and they can take a player from you and your strength, and you both get stronger at your weaker point. It's hard. It's a hard puzzle to find.
Yeah.
Plus you add in the financial aspects of it, and it's a really hard puzzle to make fit. But don't think that they're not working on it. I think
he's
they
beating
are.
the bushes.
I think they are. Every time the general public finds out about a player who's available or whatever, and particularly a player at a certain position, they're like, go get him, go get him, go get him. And believe me, before we heard about it as a public piece of news, Brandon Beane's already talked to the guy.
Well,
that's the way it works.
Just think about it last year, or even 2 years ago, the Rasul Douglas trade. I remember when Brandon spoke to the media about it, he said, we had been working on this for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, it's a process.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of conversations. There's a lot of back and forth. There's offers and counteroffers and more counteroffers. So those things don't just happen haphazardly or in a vacuum. They take a lot of work, a lot of negotiating before they're finally consummated.
As a side note, one of the reasons it works here in Buffalo, and most teams who have a really good, cohesive front office, the reason it works is because the head coach is also aware of what the GM is doing, and he has some input. And the coach said, we have this guy or this guy, we're talking to this guy, and the head coach will say, I'll take either one, but I prefer that one. And we like this way because we're doing this, and his guy's better at it.
There's conversation,
There's conversation about which guy he would like to do it, and if he has experience with him. The coaching staff is fully informed about the possibilities, and they probably – then there's another layer of this to the pro personnel. Each coach will have a pro personnel guy he likes better than – he'll say, hey, what do you think about it? He goes, well, I think he's right. I think this is that – you know what I mean? So it's a group think, and they – as with the Rasul Douglas and even the Amari Cooper thing, they get it right. The Amari Cooper, it didn't work out. Amari Cooper didn't work out because of, he got injured and all that, but the guy helped, and the Bills wouldn't have beat the Chiefs last year without Amari. That's the kind of thing you get.
He was pulling attention away from the team.
He also caught on the first third down. He caught one with a busted hand down the sideline. Then he made that catch over the head in the back. I mean, Amari Cooper helped this team, and of course, Rasul Douglas was an absolute home run. He came in and got a turnover a game.
Year he was here, yes.
So that kind of groupthink leads to good situations like that if you can fit it under the economics, and you can get the other team to say, yeah, we're done with this guy.
Let's spin it over to the numbers game, where Steve will be quizzed on Bills versus NFC South history. The Bills have 2 games against the NFC South already in the books, beat the Saints, lost to the Falcons, and they have Carolina on deck. So this seemed very timely. Tampa's a little bit later in the season. Question number 1, in the Sean McDermott era, what is their best record in a season in which they face the NFC South? It's happened 2 times. This is the 3rd go-around this year.
They're 1-1 right now. Does that count as the season now?
We're not counting that one.
Oh, so there's only happened once.
You would not expect 1-1 to be the best record against the NFC
they
South,
lost
right?
In overtime to Tampa Bay that year. I think they beat Atlanta that year. They got crushed by the Saints that year.
So I just need what you think the record would be.
3-1.
3-1 is correct, and that was in 2021. Nice job. 1 for 1. Question 2. The Bills' best turnover margin against the NFC South under McDermott in a season is a +5. What year of McDermott's tenure did that happen? 2017, 2021, or 2025 against the NFC South?
I'll say 2017.
It was 2017. That Falcons game was a big one.
Yeah,
they had
+3,
3 takeaways there. Tre'Davious with that 52-yard fumble return. Micah Hyde with a pick. Yeah, and don't forget, they come home to play Tampa, and Trey forces the fumble at the end of the game, and they kick the game-winning field goal, 27-24. I think that slot receiver was Humphreys, I want to say, and he punched it out there. So, yeah, they were getting takeaways in 2017.
Encyclopedia. I don't know. I can't remember.
Question 3, what current Bills player, I haven't known this, I know this. What current Bills player has the most tackles since 2017 against NFC South opponents? And I will acknowledge this is a little bit of a trick question, so you need to do some thinking here about the Bills' current roster and the Bills player that would have the most tackles against the NFC South.
Trey White.
It's not Trey White. That's an excellent guess.
Oh, I thought, okay.
That's an excellent guess. Because that would have been my guess.
Poyer.
It is not Poyer.
Dang it.
I'm going to help you. It's a new arrival to the team who spent
Shaq Thompson.
There you go. Shaq Thompson, who's spent a good portion of his time in the
Carolina.
NFC South. That's why I said it was kind of a trick question. Question 4.
Got a pretty good. I kind of.
You're doing well.
Yeah.
You're doing well. Chance to go 3 for 4 right out of the chute. Which current Bills player has a defensive touchdown against an NFC South opponent in the Sean McDermott era?
Trey White.
You are right, Trey White. I kind of gave it to you
You
earlier.
gave it to me earlier. I would have gotten that though. I knew.
Yeah,
we've talked
52-yard
about that
fumble
in the
return
radio
for a
show.
touchdown against Atlanta in 2017.
Pretty good day for old man.
Steve batting 750 in the numbers game. Very well done. Bills fans, get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Just download the app today to play any way you want. Plus, with live betting, you'll get updated odds on games that have already started. Best of all, you get paid your winnings fast. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the Buffalo Bills. Time now for our one burning question. Buffalo has won 5 consecutive division titles, Steve. They've played at least 2 playoff games each of the last 5 years and have played a first-place schedule the last 5 years as well. Is it at all possible that the Bills as a team have experienced contention fatigue?
Absolutely. We've talked a lot about the emotional
This
content.
is an appropriate question for you because your
Yeah.
team year after year in the 90s went back and went back and went back and went back, and that can wear on a team, right?
When you play in a lot of big games at the end of the season, important games like we did back in the day, these regular season games, you just feel like, just get me to the ones that matter.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of that going on
We
here.
saw Kansas City kind of experience that last year. 11 one-score victories. They found a way to pull a lot of those out.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
it looked hard for them, and they looked disinterested.
Yeah, and they made it to the Super Bowl last year. I mean, they turned it on when it mattered. And there's a little bit something to that. Maybe this team can do that, but you really need to win these games. You can't count on going on the road in the playoffs because by that time, no matter who you're playing, whether it's the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Chargers, the Colts, all these teams, it doesn't matter who you're playing. They're going to be playing well, and you got to be ready for that. So, yes, I think that is an absolute real thing for this club. I think it's a battle they have to fight to get emotionally up for these games.
Yeah, I think it's one of the reasons we have seen the last 3 weeks. They have not come into games with energy, juice.
You're playing
constitution.
out of conference, out of division games, teams you don't normally see. They're 2-2 coming in. The Bills have been playing teams that, the Patriots are the only team that had won a game before they played the Bills. They're
Right.
playing all these teams that can't win a game. It's just like, it's rough.
So I do think there is some contention. I call it contention fatigue. You're an AFC contender again, and you have to play a first-place schedule again. But the regular season seems almost secondary when you go to the postseason every year.
Right.
It's like, this isn't a big game. Why am I? And I think they've got to squash that and squash that fast, because right now you're sitting here on the bye week looking up at the New England Patriots at first place in your division.
A quick story with my old coach, Marv Levy, who is 100 years old this year. He told our team a story for this exact situation. You're into these games where these teams that are struggling, and you're the team that's going to, at the end, you're going to be a division title, or you're going to be a wild card, even if you stumble and fall. He said, listen, he goes, back in the day, they asked one of the great pitchers in baseball about his pitching style. It was Sandy Koufax.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, when do you really, when is it really important to pitch well? And he
really
said,
bear down.
Really bear down. When do you worry the most about a batter? He goes, I worry when the pitcher comes up. He goes, the pitcher? They can't hit. He goes, why are you worried about the pitcher? He goes, because the pitcher's the one I'm supposed to get out. The pitcher, the guy who can't hit, is the one they're depending on me to get him out. That's when I've got to do my job.
Yeah.
And when you face a team that is struggling, that's just trying to rebuild and
like the Carolina Panthers,
like the Carolina Panthers, that's the team you're supposed to beat. That's when there's a question whether, hey, the Chiefs coming in here, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming in here, the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles coming in here. Those games, that's a tough. I get it. You lose a close one of those guys, that's a tough game. You're supposed to beat that team. Make it happen. So that was the story Marv told us as we were, kind of in this, contention fatigue. Where
he saw it in you.
He saw it, and you have to address it.
Yeah. So hopefully that happens as well coming out of the bye. Our closing figure deals with James Cook's success running the football thus far this season. Among backs with more than 50 carries this season, Cook ranks 6th in the highest number of box defenders faced at 7.56. Cook stands 4th in the NFL in total yards after contact with 306. He ranks 2nd in the NFL in expected yards per attempt at 9.92. And only one player in the league ranks higher than Cook's EPA per attempt. It's Carolina's Rico Dowdle with a figure of 12.3, who the Bills face after the bye in Week 8. That'll do it for this episode. Be sure to subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use, or watch us on the Bills YouTube channel, because when you need to know about the Bills, you need to check Bills by the Numbers. For Steve Tasker, I'm Chris Brown. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time, everybody.